Welcome to this week's Forge tutorial. This week we'll be showing you how to sew your own tote bag. For this project you'll need two pieces of fabric. We're using 14-inch by 20-inch pieces of canvas, but really you can use any fabric and any size depending on how big you want your tote bag to be. We're using some webbing for a one-handle tote bag. Scissors, of course, and a pencil is always handy. You'll need some pins for pinning together your fabric and a sewing machine. You could sew this by hand, but it will take much longer. The first step is to pin our two pieces of fabric together to prepare it for sewing. We're going to have the wrong sides facing outwards as we pin this, and then we'll flip this inside out so that the right side is showing in the end. This will hide our seams after we've used the sewing machine. I'm pinning horizontally, but you could easily pin vertically as well. The key thing is to make these pins easy to remove as you are sewing with the machine. Now we'll take this fabric to the machine and start with one side, doing a straight stitch down that side, starting about ½ an inch down because we'll hem the top, and about ½ an inch in from the side. You can make your stitch wherever you want really, but this gives you a little bit of wiggle room and a nice bag when you turn it right side out. Once you reach the end of this stitch, go ahead and do a quick back stitch, maybe back and forth a couple of times to make sure that that stitch is very secure. Now with that side done, you can raise the foot and the needle and pull the piece away, cutting your thread on the built-in thread cutter on the sewing machine. We'll now do the same thing for the other side, so we'll repeat the exact same process with a straight stitch down the other side that we pinned, and then trim off any excess threads once we're done. With the other side done, go ahead and sew the bottom stitch across the bottom of the bag. You can attach the two straight stitches you did down the sides to this bottom stitch, and everything should be nice and secure and tight with no holes in the corners. You could also sew box corners here, and while we're not covering that in this video, I attached a link in the description so that you have a brief tutorial if you so choose. After you remove your bag from the sewing machine and remove any excess threads with your scissors, we're going to flip the bag inside out so that you can see the finished look. As you can see, our stitches are now hidden. If you're satisfied with the way your bag looks thus far, we're ready to move on to hemming the top and attaching the handle. We'll start by hemming the top, and to do that, we'll fold the top edge down about ½ an inch to the inside of the bag, like so. Then we'll pin this hem down just like we did with our sides before sewing it up. I went ahead and pinned up both sides, but you could easily do one side at a time if that's easier for you. It may be less cumbersome to sew with fewer pins. We'll now go back to the sewing machine and sew these hems. This stitch won't be hidden and we'll see it running across the top of our bag, but that's okay, it's not that obvious. You'll probably see that getting into the corners and doing the hem can be a little tricky, so you probably won't get it perfect. That's okay, we'll cover this up with our webbing when we do our handle. Pin your webbing, or whatever you're using as a handle, to that corner spot that you couldn't quite hem up. And when we sew this up, it'll be nice and covered. Go back to the sewing machine, do a few stitches back and forth. We really want this to be a strong stitch. So I'm going to reverse and go forward several times to get a very robust stitch. Then we'll do the same thing with the other side of the handle, and voila, you have a completed tote bag. Now get creative by adding a little flair to your tote bag. Maybe try screen printing on it or adding some kind of fabric paint. Whatever you want, it's your tote bag. Thanks for watching, have fun, and keep making.